Hello, it's Elliot from the Many-Sided Media team, here to tell you that we are running our first ever Patreon drive. Our goal is to get 100 new or upgrading annual members at any tier to join the Patreon. So, why are we doing this? We want to ensure that Many-Sided Media can continue to produce all the shows you know and love, Talk the Table, My First Dungeon, Bitcherton, as well as some new shows that we're excited to tell you about in the year to come. We want to keep Many-Sided Media surviving and thriving for the next year and years beyond, paying people fairly for the work they do and keeping everybody happy, healthy, not burnt out. The best way for you to support these efforts is to join our Patreon. What you get when you join: bonus talkbacks, bonus actual plays, our newsletter, the Many-Sided Newsletter, the exclusive show Under the Table where Brian and I talk about business, and a whole lot more. So please head to patreon.com/manysidedmedia and pledge your support. Thank you so much. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Elliot.
What's the talk of the table?
Today, we are sitting down with J Strautman, a.k.a. Yes, No, Goodbye, an award-winning composer, game designer, and podcaster known for Planet Arcana, The Fool's Errand, and Insatiable Cravings. They are also the latest member of Many-Sided Media. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hat trick. It's my third time here.
Hat trick.
Hat
Oh my god.
trick.
It is.
Is that the first talk of the table hat trick? Wow.
It's almost certainly is. I mean, I guess
certainly.
technically both of us had the first hat trick.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, sure.
But this is the first visiting team's hat trick.
Yeah.
That's like
You're
giving
on our
a hat trick to a manager of a sports team who's played 3 games, who's like managed 3 games.
Listen, sometimes
Sorry,
you need an award for yourself. You know what I mean?
I didn't mean to downplay your accomplishments like that. I don't know why I got so defensive about it, but
Oh, so Jay. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm so sorry, and I'm here to address all of the allegations, and
Good.
I will take accountability for them, and I just hope that you know that I'll always do better.
It's a time for listening, not for talking. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And
That's
I've
good.
always said that.
I hope you're here ready to listen today. If for anybody who doesn't know, Jay is obviously a very good friend of Brian and mine. And so the bits might be heavier today, and I apologize in advance for that.
The structure of this podcast will be loose. This is going to be a loose, structured podcast today.
It's going to be a loose one. So we had you on previously with B a couple years ago, but I want to go back to the first time we had you on, nearly 3 years ago. Back then, you, J Strautman, were iffy about calling yourself a game designer. It was like a big portion of the show was talking about how you didn't feel comfortable with this title game designer yet. 3 years later, how are you feeling about calling yourself a game designer?
I confidently would take that title. I know that even at the time when you asked me and I was iffy about it, that I could have confidently taken it then as well. But now, having been through, I feel like the forge of not the forge like the thing that existed, but like the literal forge of making Fool's Errand, which was such a big project, way bigger than any of us have had, or way bigger than B and I had taken on at the time. Like that was, I learned 1,000 lessons at a time where I thought like I could maybe only handle 100. So I feel
that
pretty...
really describes the creative process as a whole. Right. I learned 1,000 lessons when I only have headspace for 100.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really, you know what, actually, if I could get a little bit vulnerable about that. The reason that I wasn't crazy about calling myself a game designer at the time was because I had very recently quit my job. And the reason I had quit my job was because I was touring so much as a musician, and touring was getting so busy. And games were a thing, like the first game I ever wrote, and I think I had only released that one by the time we were talking. It was just Contact. I wrote that in a tour van. So games were kind of this extension of the time that I had while I was touring. And at the time, I was like, I like doing this, but I don't see it as my focus. But that year, we recorded that in September. Then I went on a 6-week tour, which was the biggest tour I've ever been on, might be the biggest tour I ever go on. And then I came home and I got paid from tour, and I was like, I'm going to spend all this money on going to PAX last minute. Like, just made the decision last minute to go. And at the time I was like, I'm just going to just meet some people that I knew that I only had met on twitter.com. And I went to PAX.
You mean X.com, the everything platform?
I don't know what that is. But anyway, I went to PAX as just kind of like, this will be fun. I've never been to a games convention before. And I got home and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is the thing. This is my calling. But really, at the time that I talked to you first, I was like, this is a fun hobby thing that I'm doing on the side. And going to PAX and coming home was the moment where I was like, I'm going to seriously throw myself into this.
It is amazing how much of that is just a mindset shift of just like, it's kind of this deciding to be it. Like, I know for a long time, even on this show, I think I introduced myself as like, I do film and television, and I also host podcasts. And now I'm like, well, I'm a podcast producer, and I used to do film and television.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm glad you're in the full confidence game designer J Strautman era, especially because you just won Diana Jones Emerging Designer this year. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We love to see it.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I am so overwhelmed and honored by that. I truly, I feel over the moon about it.
So, I mean, there's so many things that have happened for you in the last 3 years that are just amazing. I want to talk about them all. So you said you've been through the Forge, and I know that going through that Forge, I think, was largely in the creation of A Fool's Errand. So first, for anybody who doesn't know, can you tell us what is A Fool's Errand?
Yeah. A Fool's Errand is kind of mine and B. Marsolier's magnum opus. It's standalone, a tabletop role-playing game, science fantasy, a journey where you play as fools, which are the first major arcana card in a tarot deck, and you journey to see the world and see all the other major arcana along the way. And you do that by building your own tarot deck, a bespoke tarot deck that you make, and use it to like influence your characters' motivations and use it to add and resolve obstacles. The game itself is standalone. Like I said, you can just pick it up and play it. I think it's really cool. You play as either androids or humans in a very neon, lush world. But critically, all of the lore comes from Planet Arcana, mine and B's 100-episode actual play, which we started playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And then as we continued to play, the game system didn't quite fit the vibe that we were going for, and we made Fool's Errand along the whole span of playing through the campaign of Planet Arcana. And in Planet Arcana, you can hear us take episodes in canon where we playtest the game, so you can hear the game from conception to completion, basically. It starts around episode 50. There's insanely massive spoilers, so if you want to listen to Planet Arcana, I wouldn't recommend jumping into it unless you just want to ruin the surprise. It's crazy, but it's such a different game at episode 50 from episode 100. And then once we finished episode 100, we did a whole 8-episode series that features the finalized game. So yeah, it's a game. It was a several year long project, and it's my little baby.
I know through its many iterations, A Fool's Errand went through a lot of different changes from a design perspective and everything. Because I know the version that I played is very different from the final version that made it into the book. Kind of through that process, what were the changes that happened with this game? And also, like, there's a lot of growth that happens when making a book this big. What do you think the biggest changes, like, within you as a designer and a layout artist happened like through the process of making this game?
Whoa.
A softball. Just I want to start with some fast yes/no questions. So yes or no.
Okay, wait. So what were the changes that happened in the game and then personally as a designer?
Yeah, I think let's start. How did the game develop mechanically? And like what big changes and how were those changes brought about? But then also kind of in the process of making this, how did you change as a designer? Just from the forge, as you say, of making something, this beefy and this massive. From
the game's perspective, I cannot point to anything that we did as a big change because it was so play-tested. We play-tested so often. We play-tested on mic. We play-tested at home privately. We play-tested in our online groups. Like we put this game through the ringer. And so it's it would be unfair to point to any big changes because it was just like every time we play tested, we would make 5 micro changes. The first time we play it on mic, B and I were like, we should make a game 2 weeks before we had to record this very important episode. That game had dice, if you can believe it. It did have tarot cards. It was a very strange alien version of a Fool's Errand where like I think every player had all of the major arcana in their deck at one time, and it would like grant you some kind of bonus when you're rolling or something like that. And like right now, the final version of the game, you only have 3 major arcana in your deck. But I just remember in the recording, Sky, one of our cast members for Planet Arcana, is like, there's a moment where Sky draws like 8 major arcana in a row, and we were like, okay. So it's like,
what do we do?
Yeah, one of those things where it's just like early on, it's so clear to catch those things that need to change all the friction points. I think one of the things that I got really good at was playtesting. I was, as we were playtesting on mic, weekly I was having home games, and then probably like every couple months I was playing online with a new group. So I feel like this feels almost a little cheesy to say, but like the micro changes that were happening in the game were also happening with me as a designer. I was learning those 1,000 things when I only had space for 100, but it was just, very, very minor things about like how to communicate what I want from a playtest and what I want from my playtesters, how to really quickly find friction, because that ended up being the thing that was so critical for playtesting. And I think also how to be less precious, because there was so much. I mean, it's a 220-page game, and B and I had to cut a lot of our children out of that. So yeah, I struggle to even point towards something where it's like, this is the biggest lesson I learned. I just learned so many micro lessons that made me it made me have a better eye for detail, I think. And that's already something that I consider a strength.
I do love talking about playtesting, because I feel like it's a thing we haven't really talked about a lot on this show. Just the process of like how you approach playtesting and how you approach iteration. And I remember I was talking with someone once about like iterating on design and what to look at when you're playtesting. And it was the moments when a player or someone was reaching for a lever that wasn't there. Like they were going for something, they're like, I need something in this moment. What is it? And then it's kind of your job as the game designer to be like, hey, here's that lever you can pull.
I do have strong feelings about that, because I went to a game night hosted by Will Yobst in Toronto a few years ago, and they had a brand new game that they were testing, which is now out, called Crater Boys. But I was playing it with a friend, and it was in early development at that point. We were playing it, and there was a part where we got to in the game that was like, we just didn't know what to do. The rules didn't guide us on what to do. And so we called Will over and we asked them what to do. And Will said, what do you think you should do? And that for me locked in my brain as how to run a playtest. I think one thing that I'm really good at is that when I do run a playtest for people at home or whatever, I will put the thing in front of them and I do not explain it, because I really want to see how people interpret it themselves, and I really want to watch for desire paths that they make themselves. So as far as like finding the levers, I'm like, the friction for me is just like, yeah, exactly, finding where people want to pull those levers, but it's not my job. It is my job to put the levers in, but while I'm playtesting, it's not. It's the player's job, because I want to know what their mind initially forges.
What is the difference in your mind between like a great playtest or playtester and a bad or unproductive one?
A bad or an unproductive one will have a lot of notes about the language of, and I'm not talking about like instructional or informative language. I mean like language around like, if I've given something kind of a silly name or like a thematic name, I truly, unless I've asked you for it, don't want your input on that.
Yeah.
But I think a great playtester is someone who really seeks to make the game more than it is at the point of its, like, where it's at that moment. I playtest with someone very frequently, Ryan Kahn, who is maybe the best playtester in the universe. And he always does this thing where it's like, when I've brought something forward, he has imagined what this game could be 20 steps away, and is started to play that game. And I'm like, oh, so now I'm watching someone play a game that like it only exists in his imagination, and I'm pulling all the things that like I think this is tough to say because I think a great playtester is a great designer, and they're designing in the moment. And I'm hesitant to say that because everybody should be playtesting. Like, please go playtest people's games. It's so important to have like regular people playtest your games because you want to know if things are reading well and not just like reading to people who read games all the time. But having those people where it's just like they've pre-designed their desire paths and I just get to steal them is huge.
Yeah, this is the challenge I feel like sometimes like I always worry about running into with playtesting is I'm like, is this game good or are my friends really good at role-playing games as like as a thing? Like do they fill in the gaps that the game is leaving that I don't know about? So totally, I think like playtesting with quote unquote ordinary people is so important. People who are not avid game consumers or creators of actual play or creators of games as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also an amazing thing with A Fool's Errand that I want to call out specifically about the production is that like you did layout design having previously only laid out a 20-page zine?
24.
24. And how many pages is A Fool's Errand?
220.
220. That is a 10x from your previous largest layout. How? And also, like, what
why?
did you... Not why. I understand why. But, like, how did you do that? How did you grow through the process into, like, a really incredible layout designer? I just hired you on Rise Wizards, and people won't have seen that book yet, but you can go see previews on the backer kit, and, like, you're a really fucking good layout designer now, and, like, that's, like... It seems like, again, you put yourself through this forge. Like, how did you go about laying out such a large book?
Thank you, first of all. Second of all, I've talked about this before a little bit, but I did go to architecture school and I worked in architecture for 7-ish years, almost a decade, before, like, that's the job that I left to do music and games, etc. Architecture is a craft in which you design an instructional book with pictures. I couldn't have been better trained to do layout for games. And one of the jobs that I had, I worked at this very prestigious architecture firm in Toronto for like just 3 months. I was hired to do one college, and all I drew were stairs and transition details. And transitions, if you don't know, are when there's 2 different floor materials that abut against each other, and all of those need a drawn detail because they have different heights. And you can't just put a ceramic tile against bare concrete. But I had this mentor kind of there who was just like he was very focused on the craft of it and the respect of it. And there were so often where, for example, like we'd make these 50-page sets of drawings that are like, a meter big. And there was a bunch of times where I put instructional information in text in the gutter, which I didn't have a concept of the gutter at the time, but my boss and mentor there was always just like, you have to respect the contractors. And that was something that I carried forward too, was just, you have to respect the people who are playing the game and also give it to them the easiest way that they can absorb it. So all that to say, it wasn't the first time I had done any like graphic stuff. I did a lot of graphic stuff in architecture. I did a lot of hand layout in architecture, drawing and coloring, especially, which was cool to get paid for as a real career. So it was pretty portable to take that to game design.
I also did steal literally the exact layout for the back of this book for the game that I just laid out for Elliot, All's Fair. I was just like, this is perfect. I'm just going to do this.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. This is great. That. Yeah, I'm glad.
Well, I guess so you had a great foundation. What were the like things that you now carry as a game layout designer that you learned in making A Fool's Errand?
A Fool's Errand didn't have as much space to work with as my zines. Like Contact could have been a 4-page zine, but I just let a lot of things flow over multiple pages. And A Fool's Errand, we didn't have the budget, obviously, to do that. So I think there's a lot of hierarchy that you learn about like what's most important. I don't know if people like this or not, but for me, I love when there's like a page of text and things are highlighted so that when you're looking through the book, I was basically always considering if someone's at the table and they're like, oh, I know that there's a rule about this. I remember. I'm going to grab the book and quickly find it, how to get that information to them as quickly as possible. And even if it's in like a block of text, just highlighting things down the page is huge and helpful, and formatting goes a long way. Aside from that, also crucially having an incredible illustrator. Like B did so much illustration for that book, which informed the way that my layout looks. So collaboration is one, and yeah, information hierarchy, and always imagining myself at the table quickly trying to find a rule.
That is the thing with these books, is they have to be so, it's just such a fine needle to thread, because they have to be so creative and imaginative, and they have to, like, as you're looking through them, they have to spark joy and imagination and allow you to think at the table. But also, it does have to be that reference text of, oh no, I don't know what to do here. How quickly can I find it? Because the longer it takes, the less fun I'm going to have at the table, and the less likely I become to play this game again, because there was some friction there. It's always a very tough thing to balance, especially as the page count gets longer, because now the guidance that you have to give the reader is so much more fine. Whereas in a 16-page thing, I can flip through all 16 pages and it won't take me that long. I cannot do that with 240 pages.
You sure can't. Which is also speaks to the importance of art also in a big book like this, where it's like, I know Elliot, you feel strongly about production design being game design. And like, imagine if we had 100 pages of A Fool's Errand and there was no art. Like, as much then you really have to be like, I think that piece of information was around page 56. How the hell would you find that? Whereas like, it's like, oh, I remembered the piece of art that was next to that information, or like what color the page was, that feels really important as far as like information hierarchy.
This is why Elliot's heard this, that I hate the layout of Dread, because it's just blocks of text. And I remember the game of Dread I'm really excited about. I've never gotten to play it, but like, Jenga tower horror game that's so imaginative, that's so evocative. I remember that was the first like weird mechanic I ever heard of from a role-playing game. And then relatively recently I was like, you know what? I've never actually read Dread. Let me go buy the book. And I got it, and it came in the mail, and I opened it and I immediately set it down. Because I was like, this doesn't spark imagination for me in the way that like just the idea of the game did. And it was such a bummer. I was so bummed about it, because that's like one of the games I was most inspired by to go down this rabbit hole of indie RPGs. And then I get the book, and I don't know, I bet you the writing is amazing, but the layout and lack of art did not inspire anything in me. So I put it down in favor of other games like A Fool's Errand that actually like help to guide me through it and get me excited about playing it.
It's like in the same way that you put a piece of like a music cue in a show or a podcast or whatever to like let people know what the mood is supposed to be. You do the same thing with art and layout.
Yeah.
It's a really helpful guide. We
shorthand
talk,
almost.
I talk shorthand. Yeah. I talk a lot about like the activation energy, like picking up any new book or new movie or new show or new album, anything. Picking up out of nowhere is pretty tough. If someone gives you a recommendation, that's a little bit easier. If the art really inspires you or the layout like makes it seem like this is approachable, that's a little bit easier. And what I love about something like A Fool's Errand is that it has all those things. Like the art immediately is like, ooh, I want to open this up. The layout is like, okay, this is approachable, and it can guide me through the book, and I can see what sections I need right away and what I can come back to later. Whereas just a block of text doesn't help me in any way. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it is not making it easy for me to come to it.
Yeah. Like even Triangle Agency, which is a game about corporate, whatever. Corporate is a huge part of it. If thematically would have made sense to have blocks of text in that game. And they managed to find a way around it. So it's like you can't, you have to have that shorthand to tell people how to absorb it.
It feels like it speaks to kind of ways that maybe the industry has changed and grown in the last 5 to 10 years of just like the way books look now is so different from like even like 2020 when I first started buying any sort of indie RPGs. I feel like most indie RPGs were like black and white interior, really simple text layout, and like in the time since it's become way more common to have like full color, really really intentionally designed layout. Not that it didn't exist then, but it feels like it's more of the standard now for games is to have that kind of look, which is cool to see, and also, you know, makes it just like even more of a challenge to like make something that you feel good about. But
yeah,
I pulled Dread off my shelf to actually look at it again, and it does.
It's not
because I don't want to be unfair. I'm going off a memory from like a year and a half ago. There are a lot of interesting like little things about it that are helping to guide you in a layout sense, but all those things are through are like separations of text. So every page is still just like blocks of text in a way that this becomes so much more of a book than a manual. And I think because of the types of games we've been like experiencing over the past 5-10 years, it is very much of a previous age that I'm not as comfortable reading. Or that doesn't like it this is the exception to the rule, whereas it used to be the rule.
I don't know that I ever want to, like, no value judgment on this, but I don't know that I ever want to design a game that can be sat down and read like a book. Not to put any barriers up against it, but that's never what I'm designing for, if that makes sense.
yeah, this is the big like the discourse lately of bullets versus paragraphs in TTRPG Blue Sky.
I'm not familiar with this discourse, and I'm so excited to have an opinion about it.
I think it was a friend of ours, Sam Sorensen, maybe made the original blog post that sparked this. And Sam was arguing in favor of you should not use bullet points in game design. You should use prose and paragraphs because they're books and books are meant to be read, which Sam is often, you know, makes declarative statements with the hopes that people will debate him, and like is rarely as rigid as he appears in how he posts,
Right.
although maybe he'll disagree with me if he hears this, but I find him to rarely be as rigid as he appears in online posts. But then it sparked this whole debate about bullet points versus paragraphs, and as with any debate, it depends. But like, I feel like bullet points are a super powerful tool for game design when it comes to what you were talking about, which is like playability. Like, it's like, how do I reference a page and like make and use it?
I love that opinion exists, and I'm happy that people feel that way, and I hope that people make their games like that. It's not for me then. I don't want to read my games. Like, for me, it's an instruction manual. And every single appliance or anything I've ever bought, I read the instruction manual. I love an instruction manual. And that's what I want from my little games, is an instruction manual. If I want a novel, I'll read a novel. And I really want to be clear that that's not a value assessment. I don't think games are worse for having that. I just think that for me, I want something that's really easy to use as a tool.
I think there's an interesting spectrum here of like the first adventure type thing I ever read was like a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, which are huge and are pretty difficult to navigate. You kind of have to read them as a book or like as a novel. And then I remember when I read like something like Gradient Descent, where I was like, oh my God, there's so much extra work that is being done through like bullet points and the coloring of the pages. Like, this seems a lot easier to run. And I literally just pulled out Sam's adventure from Mothership Time After Time. And so there's a lot of bullet points in this thing. Sam, we didn't plan to talk about this. But while there are a lot of bullet points, they come with essentially paragraphs of text that each bullet point is a bit of prose rather than very terse line like you might find in something more akin to the OSR side of things. And I do get it. I think something like Time After Time, which is a really cool time traveling Mothership module, you should check it out. It is actually really rad. Splits that gap pretty well. It gives you a lot of information in a small amount of space by utilizing those bullet points, but each of those bullet points, each of those individual pieces of information are poetic and interesting. And I think that feels like an interesting space to operate in. Because I think on either side, you can run into issues. If you go too far with prose, now it becomes unwieldy. If you go too light with like very, very, very terse bullet points, now that becomes not enough information. I think something in the middle does lend you with a little bit of both. It gives you the designer's intent while also giving you a lot of room to play and also be able to find things easily.
And like, worth noting that it's not like Fool's Errand doesn't have prose in it. It's like we didn't go bullet point or nothing.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that B wrote a lot of the prose because they're like, it's a great way to immerse, especially with a game that has like a world as big as, and like, not to say you have to play the world as written, but the world is very much a part of this game. So it was important for us to have moments in the book where you do have these bits of prose that like kind of let you sink into the world. And then that's between. I guess really what the point is that a nice balance is key.
Yeah.
We solved it.
We solved it. We solved game design.
We solved it. There's nuance and balance in all things. Fuck. Well, so I guess to transition a little bit away from game design, but we'll circle back. The other thing that's come up here is that Planet Arcana wrapped. 100 episodes later, it wrapped. And combined with the wrap was the creation of this game. But I want to focus on the series, and you've written a little bit about this in the newsletter recently, but what was it like to wrap something so monumental, like to wrap an actual play that is so monumental as 100 episodes?
It is very dear and special to me to have something that we put the same amount of energy into the start, the middle, and the end. And so much of the theme of the entire show is cycles and the way that an ending has to happen in order for a new beginning. And we talked about that in our talkback so much, like especially with the way that for some of us, endings are very challenging, even just watching media or like consuming media in any way. And it was just important for us we knew that this would never ever fizzle out. We knew that we would never let that happen to it because it's too important. So I look back on something like this with the most love I've ever had for a project. I think I could probably spend 4 hours just talking about how special it is to me to have a start, middle, and end to this project. And I'll just start right now.
And go.
It is such a foreign experience to me and Elliot, I assume to you too. Like everything that we've produced for this show is the longest thing we've produced is our Perils and Princesses series, which is 12 episodes for My First Dungeon. So to have something that lives on in that way is so foreign to me, especially to have like produced it in that way. I know I listened back to the first or second episode not too long ago, and the production of that show just changes so much. Like you learn so much in any show from episode 1 to episode 100. Well, you learn a lot from episode 1 to episode 2, and then you learn a lot from episode 1 to episode 100.
It's like a polygon, in video games where it's like when they went from like 8 polygons to like 16, which is such a noticeable change, and then 16 to 32 is still noticeable. But then once you get to like 1,000 to 2,000, you stop noticing the changes. You know what I mean? Yeah, sorry to interject with that.
No, great metaphor.
No, that's perfect. What do you think from the start of that series to the end? What do you think were the biggest moments of growth for that show kind of as an entity?
Oh my God. I feel this sucks. because my
Sorry, I'll take it back.
My answer is just so similar to Fool's Errand, where it's like, I don't know that we ever had a big change. We had 1,000 micro changes over and over and over. And B and I are doing a project right now, GM commentary, where we're taking clips from the show that, now knowing everything that we know in all the 100 episodes, hit different, which has been really fun. But we're at we just finished episode 16. We were really like, we'll do 5 to 10 episodes per like episode of GM commentary. And then we spent like 1 2-hour episode on episode 1. And we were like, okay. So I think this will be an ongoing long-term project again, which I'm thrilled about. But there has been a lot of moments in GM commentary where, like, for example, we were listening to episode 9, and episode 9 is the first time I try a sound effect. And it's pretty rough around the edges, but it's so cool to have a record of my improvement on something. I know that a lot of people are, in music, we call it demoitis, where you're too afraid to release your demo because it sounds like a demo. I know that a lot of people are nervous to put something out because they are not confident in their ability to do it. For me, I released my first album when I was 17, and it sounds so bad, I can't even tell you how bad it sounds. And then I released another album right after that, and it still doesn't sound that great. But I have all of those on record now. I go back to I feel like it's the same as getting like I have one tattoo that's not my favorite, but that's a moment of my life. That's a snapshot. And I'm so excited that I was brave enough to put out an episode of a podcast like Planet Arcana, where like every once in a while I think about going and remastering episode 1 or 2, but I'm also like, that journey is kind of important to me too. That like, you know, you get to hear episode 1, which has like music cues that don't really line up with anything. And my composition was okay, but my production was not super settled. And then the epilogue, every moment is sound designed and scored like to the moment, like, you know, and I just, that's also very important to me too. So I guess the answer to the question, which is like, what did I learn? It's like, what didn't I learn? I really learned so much.
It feels like it's akin to me to the way that like when you get really into a film director, you want to go watch their first movie, even though like a lot of it is kind of bad, but you're like, oh my God, I can see all of these pieces of their vision and taste and stuff coming in, and they just didn't know necessarily how to do this thing yet, or they were doing this scrappily. It's very cool.
But also something that we've noticed a lot, especially for me, is that when you don't know what you're supposed to do, you have way less fear about doing it wrong. And that means that a lot of the choices that I made early on, like we've listened. One example that I'll give is like in episode 1 of Planet Arcana, they go to Riscotech Casino. And when they enter Riscotech Casino, we have a song that plays. That's just like the theme song of the casino that has lyrics. And we cut out everybody talking, you know, during, obviously, because like in the session, we all listen to it together. But, and I've talked about this at length in GM commentary, I know that 80 episodes later, if we had been like, should we have a theme song for this building that we're going to? I would have said, what purpose does it serve? And I think I would have been less inclined to do something like that, which ultimately was a tool to express our voices in that. And that was a thing that I wouldn't say lost, but I got further away from as we had to be more particular about what we could and couldn't put in, especially with a mystery box campaign. But there is something very powerful about not knowing what you're doing, because you try stuff that you would like a more experienced person would be like, I don't see how that would work.
There's also a thing of the less you know, the less questions you have to answer. Of like,
yes.
for early episodes, it's like, do I want to do this? Yes, I'm going to do it. For episode 80, it's like, do I want to do this? Yes. Can we do it in time? Maybe. Does it cost too much? Yeah. Like there's so many more branching paths that you have to get past before you get to the final yes. Whereas early on, it's just like, this sounds fun. Do it.
Exactly.
Oh, that's hitting my brain in a way that I'm like, oh my God, do I miss the unfettered ignorance of early creation? Of just being like, I'm going to do whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of rules.
And I get a record of it. I can listen to the ways that I produced my first album, and it sounds like hot fucking garbage. And I can listen to Planet Arcana, and episode 1 doesn't sound like garbage because I'm 10 years apart from my first album and starting Planet Arcana, So like I stand by the fact that episode 1 sounds pretty good and the end of the campaign sounds really good. But it's still like, I get to go back and remind myself that there was times where I was brave enough to just try something.
Also, is one of those 2 albums the Tan Blonde album?
No, that album rips.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, I bop that album every now and then. It's great.
That's the last album I made, and we put it out in April 2020, and we were gonna tour and make music videos, and then something happened.
And then
who's to say?
Yeah.
Anything. I mean, 6 years ago, who remembers?
Oh my God, that was
Not
6
me.
years ago?
Yeah, pretty fucked up, right?
My first album came out in 2009.
2009.
So
How the kids are saying it.
yeah, yeah. So I have a long time between those two. Also, I had nothing to do with the production of Tan Blonde, it sounds really good. I was going to say, which is why it sounds so good, and I'm not going to put myself down like that. But
Don't you dare. Well, so 1,000 micro changes. On the other side of Planet Arcana, what does J Strautman, the actual play producer, what are your sort of like actual play axioms on the other side of having, like, here's my thought. You've earned the right to have actual play axioms by completing this 100 episode series. And I think other people have too, but I'm telling you right now, I feel like you've earned the right to have some axioms. What are J Strautman actual play producers' axioms for actual play?
I don't know what an axiom is.
It's kind of like your core beliefs around it.
Yeah,
Is that
fundamental
fair?
truth.
Fundamental truth. Yeah. That's a better way of putting it. Fundamental truth.
Oh, I have one that I feel like is a bit of a hot take. And I know that people will disagree with it.
Well, I came out a little hot saying I hate Dread's layout, so we might as well just have some hot takes.
Imagine I just said I hated another actual play. We just went from there. I won't. I love every actual play. I do think that actual play works best when it has comedy. I think that actual plays without comedy have a way steeper hill to climb because of the improv that's involved in it. And I think that every other genre that you slot into actual play gets earned with the comedy that you put into it.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool.
I mean, as two people who make comedy actual play,
Yeah.
we're okay with that.
We're just fucking, what's the term? Greasing our own wheel?
This side of the chamber is willing to echo back at you.
Yeah. Echoing our own chamber. Yuck.
But I do think they're like having something that exists only in a dramatic sphere, only in a horror sphere is tough because you don't have that release valve of tension.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like that you said it's a bigger hill to climb. You didn't say it was impossible, which I think would be inaccurate. Like, it is just like, yeah, that's setting a big challenge for yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's also easy. I don't want to say easier. Like, this is slightly oversimplifying comedy, but like it is easier for a group of people to stumble on a joke than it is to stumble on a dramatically resonant moment.
Ooh. Yeah.
At least in a sense that is like in an improv sense where it makes sense with timing and everyone is on the same page. Like, it's easier to get to an improv moment of there's a ha-ha here than there is. I hated that I said that.
I liked it.
I hated that I said that.
Punctuate it.
It's easier to stumble on a moment where there's a moment of comedy that then like breaks the tension. Now we can regroup around that because all the tension we've been building has been broken. Now let's reestablish the scene. Whereas with horror or drama or romance, you really got to thread that needle a lot finer.
It's making me think of like the equivalent to the, oh my God, me and my friends are so funny, we should make an actual play. It's just imagine a group of people where they're like, oh my God, me and my friends make each other cry all the time. We should make an actual play.
You know what? I'm feeling like I want to backpedal a bit because I'm imagining
Coward.
And okay, hear me out. Imagine if you had someone who makes comedy TV and you asked them what the axioms are of TV in general, and they were like, every show should have comedy in it. It's like, well, I know that that's worked for you. You know, I feel like, because I was trying to think of another axiom just now, and I'm like, well, production value is super important to me, but I strongly believe that production value is not the marker of a good actual play. It's a marker of the actual play that I like to listen to, but there's so much that like I feel like I can't possibly. Here's like, if my axioms are truly about the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life, I want to do comedy focused, really well produced actual play with spoke composed music, which is really broad and doesn't really say a lot. I'm like, what if it sounds good?
Hot take, I want my shit to sound good. Yeah, I mean, the question was a little bit of a deliberate trap that I was asking you to create full axioms for an art form. But what the better question is, what are J Strautman's personal axioms for what you, J Strautman, will be creating going forward when it comes to actual play?
This is tough because I hope that every actual play I create is so different. I do have one thought about this that I feel like you two specifically might not agree with.
Ooh, I'm so excited for this.
I feel like when you're writing a scripted show, you can see how the themes will present themselves, and even when you're at the start, you know kind of where you're supposed to get to by the end. And crucially for actual play, you shouldn't probably know where the end is going to be or how it will appear. And so I feel like it's my own trap that I'd like to present is trying to define what your actual play is going to be before you've played several sessions of it. Which like in that way, I'm like, is actual play very challenged? I was going to say unmarketable, and I really can't believe that. I won't believe that. But my thought is like, if you're like shopping around an actual play before you start recording it, how can you lock into anything? How can you know what you're going to make until you have the table together and you've found all the things that you want to find? The reason that I struggle with this a little bit is that I think that some people are really good at being like, we're going to make an actual play and here's the themes that I want to explore, and everybody buy into that. I think that's also easier with a focused indie game. When you're doing games that are more like kind of generic fantasy or generic sci-fi or whatever, it's like hard to lock into stuff early on. Am I saying anything here that's good or important?
I think that the thing you called out there is exactly what my response was going to be, is that I think that the game matters a lot to that. I think that at least in what we do specifically, I feel like when we pick a game to play, I feel really confident in being able to pull out themes that game can help us explore. For example, Mythic Bastionland is our next season. And without spoiling any of the plot that happens in this show, there were themes that I mentioned in session 0 to the group that I wanted to explore. Why are you a knight? What is the difference between the story you tell about being a knight and the reality of it? And 8 episodes in, we have successfully explored those themes. And I think that's because that game is set up to explore those themes. I think that like it's in the text that's what the themes are, and then you can push it a little bit to make sure that you're hitting that. So I feel like game choice is huge for that.
Although I'm even thinking of the Wild Sea, which is like, there's a version of that actual play that's like pirate fun romp, like yuck, laugh 'em up the whole time, which is not,
which is what we did.
Well, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, so I guess I just want to, like, there's indie games that have that breadth also.
And I know, Elliot, just thinking of Mythic Bashland, I'm literally in the process of editing that session 0 right now. Like, earlier this morning, I edited the part where we talked about what themes we want to do. And knowing that we are 8 episodes through the season now, it is, I don't know if it's surprising, but it was noteworthy, like, how many themes that we announced at the beginning then came throughout the series, and they were like pretty disparate, like what people wanted to do. Some of them were like very specific, some of them were kind of broad, but I think you are right. They are drawing from the game in a way that I think if someone came into Mythic Bashland and said, I really want to explore, romantic love. It's like, could you do that in
It'd be
Mythic
tough.
Bashland? 100%.
Yeah.
Is the game necessarily built for that? No, that's
Yeah.
not necessarily the theme it wants to explore.
That's fair. I think I'm drawing a little bit also on my experience doing Planet Arcana, where B and I, so we have what we call 3 finales of Planet Arcana. One is the one that B and I wrote and prepared for the players. One is one that the players wrote and prepared for us. And then the final one is I guess this isn't really a finale. I was going to say our like mega recharge, which is like our 4-hour talk back where we go through everything, which was finale-esque. But point is, when B and I were preparing for the very last episode that we wrote for the show, we wrote our thesis for prep in like leading up to that episode. And like, I think that we didn't have that thesis going into the last episode. In the description writing, we found it. And that was 100 episodes of exploring. And I feel like if we had locked into something early, we wouldn't have been able to find the thesis that we did, if that makes sense.
It's the talk of the table.
Hi, I'm Maia, and this is Maia's Game Room, a narrative actual play anthology featuring short-form, story-driven TTRPGs. Each season tells a new story using a different rules-light system brought to life with sound design, editing, and emotional-rich roleplay. So, if you love cinematic storytelling and character-driven drama, come check out Season 1, set in the haunting world of the Electric State RPG. Just search Maia's Game Room wherever you get your podcasts.
Pocket Bard is the immersive audio app that allows game masters to weave music, ambience, and sound effects seamlessly into their games with just the push of a button. It's intuitive, easy to use, and now Pocket Bard has gone from your pocket to your PC. That's right, Pocket Bard is now available on your phone and your desktop computer, making it even easier to bring in the perfect music right when the climactic battle begins. Now, GMs who run everything from their PC have access to Pocket Bard alongside their other tools. It's the same Bard on a bigger screen. Plus, Pocket Bard is releasing their new cozy lo-fi collection for free to celebrate the new desktop version. These scenes will add even more flair to the quiet, contemplative moments of your game, where your players sit around the campfire and make plans for their next adventure. Download Pocket Bard for your phone or your computer from the App Store or straight from pocketbard.app. Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. They can make your perfect mini in a variety of materials, including bronze, color standees, and color plastic options. They can even put your custom miniature inside a 20-sided die, so your character lives in every attack roll and every saving throw. And if you like to 3D print your own minis, Hero Forge offers downloadable model files so you can 3D print your unique designs at home. And Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options. New parts are added every single week, and major features like new species and custom posing are updated on a regular basis. So visit HeroForge.com to start designing your custom miniature today. I had this thing that I talk about where, and I think this sort of comes from my work on like film sets as an assistant director, where every now and then I'll get a feeling of like, nothing is wrong right now, but I know that whatever choice we just made, whether that is like business or that is within a thing, down the line there's an uh-oh coming towards us, and we need to like figure it out now so that we can have enough like runway to avoid it. And I feel like the only times that's ever happened for us with actual play, like recording actual play, and I know it happened like relatively recently with an episode of like a new show that we're recording, was when we tried to be a little bit too prescriptive of what was supposed to happen in that episode. Because everyone now had some guardrails that they were working against. And when the story bucked one way or the other, now they felt like they had to rein themselves back in a way that just isn't necessarily conducive to the way that we generally make actual play. Now, I think if you are someone like Transplanter who goes like very deep into like the dramaturgy and like really works with the cast between sessions, that might work better. But I think the way that we make it, which is very improvisational, anytime you put up any kind of guardrail, you got to be really careful because that could buck against you more often than not.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. In the last 20 episodes that we did of Planet Arcana, B and I would send beats out to the players in advance of all of the things, mostly because we were on a time limit. Like we had to, ultimately we were trying to finish in time for Sky to have a baby because they were pregnant. So like we had a biological clock. But we were close enough to the end that we were like, this makes sense for us to end it here. But until that point, we operated that way. But then the beats at the end, the players were really grateful because they had time to think about it beforehand, and they ended up really leaning into what we were planning and being able to work against it if they wanted to, and also like just kind of know what was important and not. So I kind of agree, and I think it's like a case-by-case thing for me.
I think this really goes back to the elements of like game design of you want to give players and performers just enough scaffolding so that they're confident of where they should be playing.
Yeah.
But not so much scaffolding that they're playing, that they'll like knock their arms against the monkey bars as they're trying to do the flip that they want to do.
Yeah.
Love that.
There's a better analogy in there somewhere, and I kind of stumbled onto one that is half formed.
I liked
There's nothing better. There's nothing better than the monkey bars.
No, I really like the monkey verse.
But I know in a recent recording, we got a note from a performer who was like, hey, it's actually really helpful that you've kind of given us a very broad overview of what we need to do in this episode. Like it's just kind of like, you know, we're not being overly prescriptive. It's just like we need to get here by the end of the episode. We don't care how we get there. We just got to make sure that this was a big thing when we recorded Bitcherton. We were like, hey, we know that by the end of this episode, this character who's a guest performer needs to leave, and we need the cast to have this revelation. How we get there, that's totally up to us. That's going to be fun, and we're going to play. And because the performers knew the game of the episode or the game of the scene, now they had enough rules that they could play. They weren't reaching for levers that weren't there, like when you're playtesting and someone doesn't have the tool that they need.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, like, when you think about, like, that next actual play you'll make, like, obviously, it sounds like you don't want to put too much on it, I guess, when you go in. But, like, I'm curious, like, what do you think the confidence gain from Planet Arcana will allow you to do with that next actual play that you could not do 100 episodes ago?
I think that had I not been doing this GM commentary project in which I'm revisiting my past self and seeing their fearlessness, bravery is a strong word. It's like kind of, you know, foolhardiness, if you'll allow it. But being able to go back and try, like, see myself trying things that now I maybe wouldn't have done, the confidence that I've gained is that, like, I want to try things, and the thing that I'm confident in is that I know that I can course correct when things aren't right. But I would rather take a chance on, like, a path and course correct it after than not try anything at all.
That does seem like the thing that experience really gives you is just the vision to see the ripples from every choice you make a little further down the road.
Right.
It's like when you first do it, you basically run into the problem. Like you fully run into the wall because you couldn't see it because the fog was too great. But the better you get at something, the more you do it, you're just able to see a little further down so you know to avoid the wall that you're about to run into.
And, like, I think about this a lot, that the best musicians that I've played with live are not the people who don't make mistakes. It's the people who know how to recover. And, like, I've never learned a tool that has ensured that I make no mistakes on stage, but I've learned a lot of tools to pretend like I haven't.
I remember I went to a job interview once, and in my cover letter, I put something along the lines of, like, I've made more mistakes in this field than most people have experience in the field, which is probably why I didn't get that particular job. But the point I think I was trying to make was, like, I've made experiences built on making mistakes and learning from them. And like that is the currency of experience. Man, there's a lot of analogies or like faux idioms that are happening here. I think this is all very pseudo-intellectual coming from me. I just want to call that out. I'm very uncomfortable with all the things I'm saying right now. I think there's a broad good idea that I've made in the past 15 minutes, but just kind of take it. Anyone listening to me right now know that none of these individual words should matter. Just kind of take the broad idea, the broad cloud of what I've been saying.
Anybody who's not watching the video version of this know that Elliot and I have been golf clapping every time Brian's brought forward a new metaphor. And I really
I have been cutting out us going, yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very good, very good, very good.
Very good.
To industry.
There's like a couple, I think like a big thread here for me, Jay, in all the stuff you're talking about is like, you're a real learner when it comes to the stuff you do. It feels like you don't just do things and forget about them. You do things and you're constantly learning from them. You're present maybe in the things you do, if that feels accurate.
Thank you. The greatest compliment, my life goal is to mentor. I think that anybody who does art should have that as one of their top goals. Because if you're in any arts field and you're learning, you have to, at some point, pass that on to someone. You have to help someone who is struggling. I think the greatest honor in any art is to mentor. And I want to develop so many skills that I am a worthwhile mentor and that like part of my voice gets to live on through people that I help. It's like a legacy thing.
So I think what you meant to say was a more worthwhile mentor. As in like you've already gotten to that point. And now you just want to increase because you're already well ready to be a mentor. This is like last time. Now this is a callback to the first one where you didn't claim yourself as a game designer, but now you should claim yourself as a mentor.
I don't want to be I can't be no. I'll stand firmly on this. I'm not.
You don't think you can be a mentor right now?
I don't think you should mentor within like the first, like, and not to say that if anybody asks me for help, I'm going to be like, no, I'm not at that point.
I've not reached the summit, not the pinnacle of my experience.
But to be like a full mentor, I feel like you need 10 years in something. Is that bad?
I don't think I agree.
Yes.
I think yeah.
I think that's bad.
I would say that like you probably have already mentored people in games and don't realize it. Like I feel like you're putting a capital M on that mentor that doesn't need to exist.
Right. And that's fair. But I also like thinking about the advice that I gave before I did Fool's Errand. I'm like, geez, what am I doing? Like I learned, I would never do some of that stuff that I did before I did Fool's Errand. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I not to say that I led anyone down a path where they're like fucked because of the help that I gave them.
But also, I think the thing to remember is like what someone who's coming to you for mentorship is looking for. Like when they are looking for, hey, how can I do something like Insatiable Cravings? How can I do something like Contact? You have all the experience you need to give them that information. Now, is that information still good when they're looking to do something like a Fool's Errand? Maybe, maybe not. But at that point, they're looking to go from A to B, not A to F. Like at this point, would you be a good mentor for someone who wants to make a D&D adventure module? Probably less so than like an indie game. But if someone wants to make something like a Fool's Errand, like make a standalone, or an actual play or music, I think the thing of mentorship is not getting someone to the highest heights possible. It's pulling them up to where you're at.
Yeah.
With as much force and grace and ease as possible.
I totally agree with that. And I think that like my distinction there is that like I'll always help someone who asks them, but I feel like the mentors that I'm seeking in my own path are like people who have like maybe seen like several eras of the thing that they're doing. Like, my most notable mentors in music, like I had a very strong presence in my life, a mentor that I actually like moved to Toronto with, and he lived in my hometown. And when I was when I was moving out here, I was like 19 and he was in his 60s. And he had done music since whatever that year was. Imagine it.
Sure.
Google it. But, you know, so in that, a lot of the advice he gave me was kind of not helpful, but I was also able to learn a way of taking advice like that where it was like, this doesn't apply to me anymore. So it's also like learning critical thinking skills and seeing someone who's seen all these different types of production, like, because things have advanced so much in music. And it's like, it's cool to talk to people who are the same age as me and who are doing that. But it's like, it's so interesting to talk to people who have seen way more of anything that I have. And that's my goal, is like, there's also just a level of mentorship that I can't attain without having like 10 more years of life and just like see, you know what I mean? So that's sort of my distinction there.
I think it's up to the mentee to define the mentor, is what I'm realizing in hearing you talk. That I think probably a lot of people who are considered mentors don't consider themselves it until they have somebody who goes, you were a huge mentor to me. Like, I wonder if that guy, when he was your mentor, was like, I'm ready to be a mentor.
I do really like the idea that you were talking about of like, there is value to speaking with someone who has seen multiple ages of a thing. And I'm literally just thinking back because I want to slightly backpedal on saying I hate Dread, but
You didn't say I hate Dread. You said I hate Dread's layout.
I do hate Dread's layout, and I'm not going to
think-
actually backpedal on that.
Yeah.
This could be a way better game, but this could be a way better.
It's funny because we
This could be a
just
way better
met
product.
Epidiah at Origins, so now we have like a personal connection.
That's
Oh my god, I
crazy.
forgot. Listen, I think this game is phenomenal, and I do want to say something. This all wraps up. This is the first game that got me interested in indie games because it had a mechanic that was so interesting. I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. I need to learn. I thought it was just dice, and now there's like this whole other world that's opened up to me. So I'll always be grateful to this game for that. But there is something interesting to be learned that I should take my own advice, kind of this is from a slightly earlier era of game design where having just a ton of text in a book was the thing you do. And this was, at the time, you know, doing Jenga blocks and stuff was the incredibly interesting and new thing. So there is probably something great to be learned from how Dread uses all of its pros in this that I should learn and take into something like, you know, the next game I do layout for, the next game that I try to write, that takes the lessons from something like Dread and puts them into something that looks like a fool's errand.
Do you know what year Dread was published?
2006.
2005. That was
Oh,
pretty good. Yeah.
So there is a thing about eras there that is worth remembering, that like there are, I'm just thinking about like, you know, sound design or something. There are tricks that you wouldn't know if you've only worked in digital, that people who made like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy are very aware of, and that you can only kind of replicate in digital, but you might not even think to do because you didn't have the limitations of digital. In the same way that like so many cool effects are created because someone accidentally slowed down a tape, or like the cut, the really famous cut that happens in Lawrence of Arabia where he blows out the match and then it immediately hard cuts to the desert. That only happened because they were planning on putting a dissolve in there and looked at it without it for a second. Like they literally spliced it together and saw it and were like, oh wow, that's really affecting. Screw the dissolve, let's keep it.
was that you were pulling on like slowing down a tape? Did I tell you that story about Strawberry Fields Forever? Was I talking to you about that by the Beatles?
No, what is it?
Okay, this is a fact I learned recently. This is a hard turn, and we'll bring it back to something relevant. But I was watching this video about the production of Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles and how they did like 10 demos of it, and they were unhappy with each of them. They just could not nail it. And so they did a bunch of takes, and then after a while, they asked Ringo, they were like, hey, can you just kind of go ham on the drums, like just go crazy? So they played a version of Strawberry Fields Forever where they're kind of just all the like strings are playing what you'd expect, but the drums are just like toms everywhere, like absolutely a note on every beat. It's so garish, and they didn't like it, obviously. But then when they were going back to make the final version, they decided that they really liked the "Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to," that part, which was like all slow, and they had a take where there was like no drums at all. And then they mixed it with the take where Ringo was doing drums like crazy. However, when they did that take where the drums were going crazy, they sped it up by like a certain number of BPM, and they did it at a different key. And by some grace of the universe, when they stretched out the tape where he was doing drums like crazy, it brought the key back to the original key. And you can hear it in the final version. You can hear the vocals get stretched out.
Yeah.
It is so cool. And it's just one of those things where I was just like, it just feels psychedelic. And it's like, no, they just were trying shit. They were just throwing spaghetti at the wall and stretching tape. Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's so cool to hear. Because why would you ever do that in the digital age? Why would you ever stretch out a tape? You know what I mean?
And it's just like, that's the accident that is so much harder to have happen. Like, there are digital tools accidents that you can have, you wouldn't have been able to have with reel-to-reel tape. But every medium like that becomes extinct or bygone, or like an age that passes, has some fun, interesting things from it that you can only learn from fucking around and making mistakes in it, that you then won't be able to, like, you can't learn those lessons. If you're Pikachu and you evolve too quickly, you don't get the swift moves that you get as Raichu.
You're cooking today, man.
I'm cooking. Actually, the Pikachu Raichu one is good. You got to train in the age that you're at before you evolve, because then you won't be able to get the quick moves that you could get as a Pikachu, but you can't learn as a Raichu. That one's good. That one stays.
That one's, yeah, cut all the rest
They're
of
all
them.
Cut all the rest of them. That's the one I want on my tombstone.
I tell you what, they're all staying. There's a fun like there's an interesting thing, Jay. Forgive me for this, but we talk about off mic a lot. About one of the reasons that we like talking to each other about games is that we both take it very seriously. Is like a phrase we talk about, and it's like, I think that is true. And then I think there's this side of things that we're talking about like the power of like ignorance of starting out and like experimentation and stuff. And I'm curious, like, where do you find yourself in that balance of like serious at this stage in your career of game design versus still early enough where you're like, I'm gonna fucking go for it?
I don't see those as mutually exclusive. Does that help?
I like that.
I think that being serious involves a level of experimentation that requires foolhardiness. I don't know, because I consider being serious as I take it seriously, not I am serious.
Yeah.
Because I'm not.
You also don't have to be...
Neither am I.
you also don't have to be like good at something to take it seriously.
Yes.
100%.
True. I come with having been in music for a long time before games. I come with a lot of experience of like networking events too, and the way that I comport myself like in online spaces and everything like that. Like those skills I have developed over the last really long time also, which like it made it easier to take something like this seriously because I'm not starting from scratch.
It's interesting. I was looking up when your first episode was this morning in prep for this conversation, and that episode was called You Owe Them the Effort. And to me, that is taking the thing seriously, is like giving it the effort. You know, whatever that effort looks like for you. And that effort might be being very silly and experimental, but like you're giving it the effort, you're taking it seriously.
I'm like circling around this idea that I can't quite find the words for about being serious about something, but it's just like, I never want to make it seem like this is, I don't like what I'm about to say, but I never want to make it seem like what I'm doing is easy. Does that mean anything to you? How does that make you feel?
I've got two stories. That one is old and one is new, and one is borrowed and one is blue.
Oh, congratulations.
and I think they actually relate really well to this. In terms of like, I want to take it seriously. When I first moved to the city, I performed, I was throughout college, I made a lot of money. I made money to like pay for stuff doing.
How much?
doing magic, doing like tableside close-up magic. And when I came to the city, a bunch of my friends were comedians. They had me on their shows to be like the magic act that broke up a bunch of like bad improv comedy. They're all very good now, but you know, when you start out, you're bad. And I remember there was a a friend of mine who wanted to learn a magic trick for one of his shows. And I taught him a relatively basic magic trick, but one that's pretty easy. And then I get to his show to like support him. And he kind of like makes a thing about how the show was like him fucking it up. Like not actually trying it, like kind of just fucking around. And the problem with magic is now he's ruined what was actually like a relatively like fundamental sleight or secret of magic for this entire room of people. And I stopped being friends with that person. It's like one of the few people, it like truly affected me. I saw that and I was so mad that someone took something that I like love and cared for and shared with and made a mockery of it and didn't take it seriously. Like it really was one of the few times I can remember being like truly insulted. And I know he was just doing it for laughs and he was a comedian and it was not intentional. Like he's not a bad person. But I was just like, I hate that. I hate it so much. And then just yesterday, I was at a cafe and I was sitting there, I was editing, and through my headphones, I could hear two girls next to me who were like 20 and 21. And they were very 20 and 21, if you know what I mean.
20 and 21 derogatory.
20 and 21 derogatory. And they were talking about, they were both like in publishing, or one of them was in publishing, one of them wanted to get into publishing. And one of them was saying like, yeah, I wish I could just write. Like I could just make a living writing. And the girl who's 21 said, well, just like go for it now. Like you're in your 20s. You can always like bounce back later. It's not embarrassing to do it now. It'd be like, imagine how embarrassing it would be to do when you were 30.
Hey, whoa!
Oh, God.
And I never in my life have I wanted to interrupt a conversation and be like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Holy. That would actually hurt physically.
From a man of 34, nearly 35, making podcasts about actual play. Trust me, like lean into the fucking cringe, but take it seriously the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that. I
hated it too. But you when you're 21, those are the mistakes.
I'm sure I thought the same thing. I'm actually sure I did.
And it's important to like make those mistakes and say those things and like hold your future self to like higher account. But then when you get older, you've got to realize like, hey, when I was an idiot when I was 21.
Oh, big time. When I moved to Toronto with my band at the time, and when we did, we were all, I was 19, they were 20 and 21, and we were like, we have 1 year to make it. And every time we told people that, they were like, what does making it mean to you? And we were like, but yeah.
And that just reminded me of, I don't know where this is all going, but I think all of these stories kind of relate to my sense of what taking something seriously means.
Yeah.
And I think is like kind of fundamental to how I look at how we make actual play and how we make podcasts in general. And there's a good friend of mine, she's an actress. And I was talking to her maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. And she kind of said something along the lines of like, I know I want to be an actress. This is the thing that I was like here to do. I don't care how long that takes. I'm going to keep doing that. And what I loved about that is that most people, when they want to, especially with like actor or actress or performer of any kind, a lot of people will say like, I'll give myself a year. I'll give myself 3 years to try to make it. If it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. And ultimately, any of those types of fields are throwing darts at a dartboard. It is, no matter how good you are, it is luck.
Yeah.
And she's said, no, I'm not going to give myself 3 years. I'm going to give myself 30, 40, 50 years. And I'm going to keep throwing darts at that dartboard because this is what I want to do. And that's what taking it seriously means. It's like it is claiming full-throated and, with all of your guts, saying, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is what I want to do. And not living in a space of being embarrassed or being cringe when you haven't gotten to whatever point where you are the capital A actor, capital M musician, etc.
And those goalposts probably change a lot too, and you have to allow yourself time to do that. Something you said crystallized my thoughts on taking something seriously, though, around your friend who ruined the trick. I feel like that pisses me off, first of all. But second of all, I'm like, as soon as you were saying that, I was like, okay, that's what's important to me about taking something seriously, is that like we're doing everyone in the community we're respecting the entire community by taking it seriously too, because like I feel like especially because I exist in a different art space, it is really hard for people to take games seriously at all. And those of us who are in the scene care about it and we get it, but it's like there is something about the fact that maybe it's just like because it's art that is based in play or whatever, and like some of the most famous ones are like, I don't want to say duds, but they're old. Like if you ask anybody to name a board game, they're going to say Monopoly at some point, you know? So there's like a lot of outdated references, but the point is that like I want to take it seriously because I want this art form to be taken seriously by people outside of the art form too, because eventually we're going to have to start selling to them.
Yeah. We're going to run out of people.
We're going to run out of money in this little sphere.
This is the thing. My brother is a business owner and like runs an online business called Chill Subs, which helps writers. And so online writers is like a bigger community than online gamers or game designers. So it's like he's working in an industry that is a bit larger and a bit older, literature and literary writing. And I often talk to him and I will seek his advice at times. And I will say something where I'm like, well, like, that's not really how it works in my industry. And he's like, your industry is really small and like really new. And like, eventually you're going to have to do things the way other industries have had to do them. And I'm like, sometimes I push back against it. Sometimes I'm like, there are certain things that make this unique. But in other ways, I'm like, yeah, eventually we will have to find ways to sell better outside of ourselves. But we don't get there if we don't take it seriously along the way and like grow with it and within it and push it to grow as an industry.
I was talking to Rowan Zioli about
I've heard of her.
Heard of her?
About criticism for actual play. We're kind of having a discussion, and she mentioned a thing that. So we've talked in the show about like Cahiers du Cinema and like the French New Wave, and Andre Bazin was one of the people who like founded that. Said a thing about criticism that I think kind of applies to like taking it seriously, and it was that he believed that critics. I'm quoting Rowan. Andre Bazin believed that critics should help viewers develop from passive consumers into co-creators. Quote: "If an audience laid claim to their cinema, they could learn to take command of their whole culture." And I think there's an element of taking something seriously, of like, if I am presenting myself as this is a real thing, like the more I make that real, the more authority I have to like help bring people into it, to allow them to experience it. There's a thought crystallizing that I haven't quite found yet, but it's circling around this idea.
Yeah. I heard the words that you said in that quote and they didn't compute for me. Can you hit me with it one more time?
If an audience laid claim to their cinema, they could learn to take command of their whole culture.
What does that mean?
I think the idea, rather than having someone be a passive, so I think in the game space, if you ask someone what's a game, they say Monopoly. That is a largely outdated frame of reference from our perspective, because we're very much on the inside. They're passive consumers of games. They're just grabbing the board games that their parents have given them, that they see most broadly displayed on the shelf. The goal that Bazin was saying of like being a critic is to try to make those people who are just seeing Monopoly look a little bit further down the shelf, to see Settlers of Catan, to see Wingspan, to see, smaller and smaller and more niche games. And now by granting them that ability to look a little bit to the left, away from the most obvious thing, now they can better, that person who was just a passive consumer, the person who just knew about D&D, now can lay claim to this entire art space and help form it themselves, and can be part of the conversation of what this thing becomes. And I think to make games get bigger, to make actual play get bigger, we can't just have people who are just taking in the most obvious things. We need people who are invested as consumers, as viewers, as listeners, to take command and become part of the conversation themselves. I think there's a vague idea. I have the outline of an idea here, and I don't think I've elocuted it well. But I'll leave it here for posterity.
I like everything that you're saying is resonating with me. I think I'm stuck with like, but how? How do we do that?
Well, no, I think this is it. Is that the thing that I think I like on a kind of spiritual level about the French New Wave and like Cahiers du Cinema is it was a bunch of really young people saying, "Hey, we're gonna do it better. Like we say how we do it better. Like famously Francois Truffaut was a horrible, very harsh critic of a lot of French film. He got banned from the Cannes Film Festival, and a bunch of people said, "Hey, if you can do it, if you think you can do better, go ahead." And the first film he made was Le Quatre Cinq Coups, and it won the Cannes Film Festival the following year.
Oh my God.
Which is just such a great fuck you.
Devastating.
But I like that ultimately they were harshly critical because they were like, hey, we've gotten passive. Like, this art form has gotten passive. We're going to take it seriously. We're going to be the hard edge of the scalpel that is going to cut away the fat. And I think, and I don't, we've had conversations on our Discord and on this show about, like, does actual play need criticism? Do games need criticism? Probably yes, to some degree, but also it just needs more people who take it seriously and claim it with their full chest of, like, I am a game designer. Board games are important. Actual play is as important as movies, as music, etc. Because just by saying it, it does breed it into reality and create it as a bit of a truth.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think you got there.
I think you got there. I'm gonna muddy the waters.
Oh.
and just say that, like, there's a thing, Jay, in your work that is a thing that I find that is hard to identify in work in general, in creative work in general, but specifically, I guess, within games and actual play, where it's like you hear the actual play you make and you read the games you make and you're like, this has the sauce, you know what I mean? And like, and some of that is talent and some of that is effort, but I think that X factor that I'm always looking for in a game is I think the person who made this took it seriously. It's like, I think the person who made this really gave a shit about it, really, like, made the effort to learn how to make something like this. Like, it's like, even, and this is before A Fool's Errand, which I like is very clearly something that you took seriously. I remember reading Insatiable Cravings from you when it was like an early draft game and we were new friends. And like that game, I was like, oh, Jay's a sick designer. And what I didn't know how to put the words together was like, and they're taking this seriously. It's like, that's like, that I think is the putting to words the thing that I can identify in work that I really like. Now I have maybe language for it.
That is one of the biggest compliments I've ever received. So thank you for that.
Oh, we could easily spend the rest of the podcast just gassing.
Yeah, we could just compliment you.
And I'm
for the
here
next,
to listen.
Yeah.
I said that and I'll stand by it.
Well, no, I can echo some of that with my own thing of, like, the thing that I think you can immediately tell about, like, your work and other work that we really care about is, like, when you can see the effort coming through into something, it validates my time and attention to look at it, to take it in. And that is just, like, it's the immediate thing to get over the hump of, like, do I check this out? Do I not? Do I listen to this? Do I not? Do I read this game? Do I not? Do I play this game? Do I not? So we talk about, like, what your next actual play will be. I mean, we'll spoil it right here. It's going to be a show on our podcast network.
It is?
Coming out.
I've been working on it for months.
And you've won a brand new actual play.
Yay!
But the thing that is, like, the X factor for me is not necessarily something I can put to words with, but it is, there are a bunch of people who I know are talented who, if they said, I want to GM an actual play, I want to make an actual play with you in collaboration that you'll have some part in, I would be like, oh, I can see how that would be good, but I don't know. And it'd just be a thing of, like, there's some nebulous worry that, like, something is going to go wrong in the background, something. With you, that never existed. Like, when we talked about, like, expanding many-sided media into more people, it was like, oh, Jay, obviously. And then there were, like, other people on the list, but it was like, Jay, obviously. And then we'll discuss these other people.
Who else was on the list?
It was actually just your name like 6 or 7 times.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But when we both kind of accidentally pitched the same show to each other a little bit.
I know.
It was so immediate of, like, no, obviously this is going to be great. Obviously this is a thing we should do. And that obviously comes with so much work beforehand. Like, you don't get to obviously immediately. Obviously is the thing you want to get to with anything. And that comes with a crazy amount of effort shown. Like, there are certain game designers where if I, like, Felix Isaacs, If Felix Isaacs comes out with something, obviously I'm going to buy it. Obviously, I trust him implicitly. If fucking All Play comes out with a new game, obviously I'm going to check it out. If J Strautman wants to make a new show, obviously I'm going to let them do it on my network. You know what I mean?
I'm having a lot of feelings about this, mostly gratitude. So thank you for all the nice things that you've said about me. It's really nice and I'm happy. But I'm having this feeling around, like, we're talking about, like, you can see the effort in something, and I'm thinking back to a ton of stuff that I won't name where I can see the effort in it and it isn't good. And so I'm like, so what, like, I just think that X Factor I don't want to think that X Factor is something that people can't achieve through hard work. You know what I mean? But
I think it's here's the thing, is that I think people can make good things and not put that effort in, unfortunately. And I think you can put that effort in and make a bad thing. But I think the difference for me between a good thing that gets me really excited and a good thing that, oh, cool, that's cool, is that X factor of the effort of the seriousness. And I think that also the difference between a bad thing without the effort and a bad thing with the effort is that I'm still really glad the bad thing with the effort exists, because I'm like, this is interesting. And I think that probably that person, the next thing they make will be good with the effort, because I can tell that this is the kind of person that is putting that kind of effort into it.
Yeah. Okay. I really fuck with that. I'm thinking about all these bands that I used to go see in Toronto that would, like, never in a million years get radio play because their songs were so weird, because they were trying a bunch of stuff that, like, you just, and it goes back to that thing of, like, if you're really experienced in radio, you're not making those choices. But when you get to be new at something, you get to try stuff that, like, later on you have to be like, why would we do this? What's the intention behind it? But there's a lot of, like, so there's a mix of intention and also a fearlessness of, like, just do it, that is hard for me to define or find the, like, middle ground between.
There's also an element of, and I kind of come back to this when I know on our Discord, a conversation that happens a lot is, like, talking about, like, weird and experimental and interesting actual play, and kind of a disappointment that it's not happening more, or that it's not more popular. And I think it's kind of like what you said about, like, radio play. Like, if you want to get on the radio, you generally have to fit in a certain kind of box. That box has maybe gotten bigger over time and more varied. Maybe it hasn't. I don't really know. But if you want to make the weird experimental thing, you have to know that it's not going to be for the radio. Like, you have to create that new space where people can appreciate it, and know that that space is probably going to start smaller. I don't know. I have some kind of like complicated feeling about this, and I don't have the words for it yet. They're out. This is my theme for this whole episode. Is I think I have a lot of ideas that
What's
I haven't.
crazy, Brian, is that you
thought of
keep
yet.
saying really good things, and then you doubt yourself, and I'm going to kick your ass about it, actually.
That's the thing, is, like, I don't, because, you know, early in this episode, I said I hate the layout of Dread, and I do dislike the layout of Dread. But there's so many, like, that is a broad sword to take to what is actually a nuanced take. And I feel like I'm doing. And I think this is a thing of, like, as you get better at something, you get the cuts that you make, the changes you make are smaller and smaller. You're adding more and more edges to the polyhedron. I think I now have a clearer idea of what a perfect circle looks like, but I know that it is a lot harder to add those additional edges to get closer to that polyhedral. And I think there's a part of me that has rested on my laurels at 64 sides to the polyhedron when I need to get to 3,664, whatever the next binomial of the thing is.
I'm sorry, that one I lost, Sean.
I think over the past, like, year, I've become very aware of a thing, like, in myself of, like, I have rested on my laurels of what my thoughts about production, of my thoughts about actual play, of my thoughts about tabletop role-playing games and producing them and performance and all this stuff. And I think I'm at, like, a good level for most of those things. But the next level past that is a very clear increase of intentional effort for a significantly smaller increase in knowledge or expertise. Like I'm past the noob gains, and now I have to really put in a lot of effort to gain like 1 more pound of muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I also feel like there's something in there that I want to touch on about, like, especially the radio thing as it pertains to actual play. And again, I'm going to preface this with, like, there's no value assessment in this, but, like, without popular media in a certain art form, like, if you don't have that, how can you have, like, the counterculture in it, if that makes sense? Like, if everything was weird, bizarro actual play, nothing would be. And I feel like we're so far away from having like a commercialized actual play outside of like Critical Role, but like one show is not a whole art form, right? Like, you know, just because we have one big millions of viewers shows does not mean that like that's the norm. But like, and it would be great to have a bunch of Critical Roles. That would be my goal. But there is an importance in lifting up the stuff that's not like completely experimental and trying new stuff. I'm worried. I'm like scared to say this. I don't know why. Because I don't want to say that, like, you know, taking risks is bad and making stuff regular is good. But there is, you know, we at some point someone has to make money off of this for the culture to grow, unfortunately.
I think it's also there. I want to really value experimentation because I think that's like where interesting stuff happens. And like some of the shows on our network are like, I mean, Project Echo is very experimental and is like probably from a profit perspective, not worth doing. Like if you really want to break it down, because it's like, it's very short episodes. They come out at random times. It was way more time consuming than we thought, but it was a really interesting idea that we really wanted to try. And we'd heard a lot of people kind of talking about something like this. And so now we've taken actual play to like a very far other side. You know, I talk about wanting shorter episodes. We make 4 to 5 minute episodes that come out anytime, any day, sometimes 2 a day, out of order. We've changed like 10 variables with this show. And that was a hard show to make and the production process was difficult, but we have learned a lot from that show that we wouldn't have gained if we took an incremental step over to the left. If we made 60-minute episodes instead of hour-and-a-half episodes, sure, we'd learn something, but not the thing we learned from 4-minute episodes. And like the amount of storytelling you have to pump into that.
Yeah.
So I think like that experimentation is really important, but it has to come with the caveat and the understanding that the audience is going to be smaller. That there's a world where like Project Echo blows up because it's a really cool fucking show and it's like weird and interesting and it's time travel and it's rad. But there's also a very real world where it doesn't. And I don't think we were looking for it to be like the biggest show of all time. That would be great. But we have to know that we're doing something really weird and experimental. It is probably going to be less commercially viable, but much more artistically valuable, that we can then use those learnings to take, you know, My First Dungeon and move it a little bit to the left, you know, a little bit closer to that and make something more interesting and valuable from those learnings. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And like parallel to that, you probably couldn't have made it without My First Dungeon. Like,
yeah. The only reason we could make that show is because we kind of did it before with our like Project Echo actual play, and before that our Anamnesis actual play.
But even just financially, like, you know, you're keeping the lights on with My First Dungeon, and you know, you have space to experiment. Like if that was the only thing, like if you had just entered the space and you made Project Echo exactly as it is now, like not talking about like experimentation and all this stuff, like it would be really hard to continue making stuff like that, because if you're, you know, because at some point you have to make money, and I hate it, but you do, but we have to.
I will say I'd actually say it's the inverse. I think it's a little bit harder to make Project Echo now than before. Elliot, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but like when you're just in full experimental mode, I don't have to worry about any of those other things. And so Project Echo is a really exciting and fun and like easy to make show. Whereas now there are more questions that have to be answered. There is more calculus of like, I've got a bunch of freelance projects, but there's 2 episodes of Project Echo coming out. That can be frustrating. Whereas if I didn't have all these other projects, that wouldn't be the case.
But you might have 2 day jobs. Not to say that this is any of our day jobs.
Sure, totally.
But like, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth on that because it's like, I guess every hour I spent on the Project Echo show this year is an hour I wasn't writing Project Echo 2, I guess. So it's like, there is just like the calculus you have to make as you go further on.
That's the thing that it is frustrating that making something more experimental, that is more dangerous in that you don't know how it's going to go and might just end up being just for you and is a really cool idea and you're excited about it, it becomes more frustrating when we know that we have something like My First Dungeon that like works. So when I sit down to do both things, I'm like, My First Dungeon is really working. Should I just keep doing that and try to make that better? Or should I make this big swing over here and do something very different that might not in the short term move the needle as much, but in the long term will drastically move the needle for My First Dungeon and other shows that we make. It's really just like I've got 24 hours in the day. Shit. This is an additional stressor. Not in a bad way. In a necessary way.
Yeah.
Because we have to make money.
Well, no, I'm saying it's a stressor creatively.
Right.
Very much in the way that I'm saying, like, I think I've rested on my laurels for long enough and I need to be more intentional. I think Project Echo is like, there's an element of it where it's like, I need to get up and go to the gym. And every morning when you go to get up to go to the gym, you don't want to get up to go to the gym.
Brother.
But when you do, you feel good at it. Like it's a constant battle of motivation and the slow process of something getting better.
And all the lessons that you're taking, like, it's hard to see the lessons that you take to your next projects while you're doing it. But
the 1,000 lessons.
So that makes it hard in the moment. But like, I've been like circulating around this thought that I'm like, this would be cool if I said this at some point here. But like, there's this thought that like,
hilarious intro.
I'm about to sound so smart. But this thing that B and I have been working on with GM commentary and how I keep going back and like being like, wow, I was way braver than I am now, is like, there's an importance to me about the work that I'm creating in any medium where it's like, it's kind of important to constantly be new at it, and that could be like trying something new, like with Project Echo and like experimenting with like the show format or like even a production thing. But like, if you're doing something that you're already good at, you're not going to learn at all. So you kind of have to bring that element of newness into any project that you're doing and be a little scared about it, because that's the only way you get better and learn.
And I think this is...
Can you clip that? Is that smart?
We can totally clip that.
We can clip it with that at the end.
I feel like My First Dungeon allows us to cheat in this way. Because we play new systems every season, there's an element of that where we get to like... Sometimes it is true, and I think sometimes it isn't, that we are doing something new. Sometimes we're kind of head faking towards it. Where I think Perils and Princesses, don't get me wrong, I love Perils and Princesses. I think it's phenomenal. I think it was a really good season. I don't know how much I learned from Perils and Princesses that I didn't know from D&D. I think I did learn some stuff, but not as big a jump as going from D&D as our first season to Honey Heist or to Wanderhome. And I'm not saying that any of these things are bad. Let me be clear. Perils and Princess is one of my all-time favorite games.
Huge.
In no way am I being negative on Perils and Princess.
Brian hates Dread. Hates Perils and Princess.
I really love Perils and Princess. But the thing that I was interested in that game was like, there's a great adventure here. I really like this adventure. I really like the system. It condenses down things to the tip of the spear. The tip of the sword is so sharp on this game. I want to play with that. Something that is so focused and precise. I think that's like the magic of Perils and Princesses is how sharp the tip of its sword is. But the sword is largely D&D shaped. So I've gotten to play with the sharpest sword, but I am still playing with a sword. Apparently, this is all I'm able to do.
Oh my god, if we were
say something
taking a
and
shot
condense
every
it down
time
to
you
a
did a
fucking
metaphor, I'd be blackout.
This is my worry with this show is that Elliot does the interviewing and then I just interject with metaphors. Is my true if you get down to the core worry about me with this show is that I'm just color commentary.
But all these metaphors have been really apt.
And
They've
they're
been really
good.
good. They are really good. I just like this. There was the sword talk really got me. I don't know why.
It reminds me of that Garth Marenghi quote of like, I knew writers, I can't do a Matt Berry. I knew writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. That's what this feels like. It's like
I knew podcasters who ask questions and they're all cowards.
they're all cowards.
Oh, I'm just here to listen.
And I think that, you know, if that's my first dungeon, like making swings, I think the thing for me personally was, you know, just like today as of recording, I released this like con diary that I made for our time at Origins, which was just me like basically stealing the NPR style of interviews and radio plays or radio stories. And that was the first time I played in that world for this type of show. And I think as good as we've gotten at like interviews, or really as good as Elliot's gotten at interviews, and as good as I've gotten at commenting on them,
I'll kill you.
That was a really interesting and exciting thing for me to do, something formatted so differently and try to find my way through it. And now, like, I made a bunch of mistakes in that. And I think it's like, it came out well, but I now know going into Gen Con, I want to do it again. And I can better approach it because of all the mistakes I made this time, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, you're making when you're learning something, you're just making shortcuts. You're getting to the place you need to go faster by eliminating all the missteps and the detours. You're
making the neural pathways.
Yeah, if I might swing my sword a little bit.
All
Swing
right.
it. Swing it.
All right.
All right. Holy shit. Well, we've gone for 2 hours. I'm gonna bring us towards
3 more hours
a
to go.
close. 3 more hours to go. Non-stop 5-hour talk of the table extravaganza. Jay.
Yeah?
There's a question in here from early in my outline that I feel like is weird to throw in at the end here.
Hilarious.
But I want to ask why you've rebranded to Yes, No, Goodbye.
Ooh. Wow. Logistically, I am doing so many things. I'm making music, actual play, games, and then who knows what else. And I honestly, like, I just have so many different handles. I really just wanted a catch-all for it. But to be completely honest, it has a lot to do with just looking like I'm taking myself seriously and that, like, I myself am a business. And I spent a bunch of money with a really good photographer and got some great photos done. And I had a logo made up by the incredible Nick Rolowicz. And, you know, that and just making it look like I am a serious guy who cares a lot about all the different things I'm doing, even if they're really varied, which is something I've been self-conscious about, that like I've cast too wide of a net. But now it looks like a bit more intentional.
Hell yeah.
Product design is part of game design.
And yeah. And what is life if not a big game?
Life is a game, and I'm playing.
And
you don't
I'm
just look like a
designing
guy
it.
who cares about all those things. You are a guy who cares about all those things.
Thanks for that.
We gotta keep finessing you on your word choice.
Yeah. It's
I'll take notes.
Apparently, that's our actually.
Yeah, you've got off ramps in your word choice to accepting your titles.
Well, but you know what? Before I rebranded to Yes, No, Goodbye, I knew I was taking myself seriously. Rebranding as Yes, No, Goodbye was to me, the point of that was to let other people know, to make it look like I was taking myself seriously. So that's what I mean by that. Like, I was, but I want everybody else to know.
And that's great. That's actually a really good distinction. I like that. I'm going to make this about me for a second. This reminds me of the origins of More Blueberries as a brand was when I was in film school in college. And I had to make a website for my film 201 class or whatever, and to put our short films on. But like the guy was like an independent film guy, and he was like, you need to know how to make a portfolio website. Like, that's just something you have to do. And More Blueberries had become this like kind of joke I was doing on my Instagram, which I'm not going to go into here. But for this class, I was like, how much does a URL cost? I'll buy moreblueberries.com, and I'm going to make this portfolio website for my class, moreblueberries.com, because like I want to take this shit seriously, damn it. And now, 12 years later, that is my business now, More Blueberries LLC. So I totally get the wanting to signal the seriousness. Is like a brand, a personal brand can be a really good way to do that.
A custom domain? What's more serious than that? And I mean that so genuinely.
I have a friend who has business ideas a lot, and he's way cooler than that makes him sound.
Wow. That was rough.
He also has made multiple businesses, but he is the kind of guy where like he's like, oh, I had this idea, so I bought the URL just in case. And it's like a URL costs less than $10 usually. Often it's like,
yeah.
It's because he knows as soon as he wants people to take it seriously, as soon as he wants people to take him seriously, having the website does it. It's the little thing. The thing about being taken serious is it's all the little things.
Yeah.
Do you know my favorite story about something like this was for years, before Hugh Grant got really big, he created a fake assistant that was just an email that was like Nikki at HughGrant.com or something. Well, no, for email correspondence. So there was just a fake woman who was like his assistant and or agent who would correspond with people because it made him sound like real or like important, and he just lived on that for apparently way longer than he maybe should have.
That's so funny. Oh, I desperately want to do that.
It's a real fake it till you make it type thing.
Yeah, dressing for the job you want kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Having the assistant for the job you want. Being the assistant for the job you want. There's a joke in there somewhere.
Is Hugh Grant the one whose middle name is Mungo?
I think it is. I think it is.
That's true. Hugh Mungo Grant.
Hugh John Mungo Grant. I forgot about that.
Oh my god. God, that gets me.
And in conclusion, so Jay, we knew when we booked this that we would be going for probably 2 hours. We booked 2 hours. We're now past our 2-hour mark, because you're one of our favorite people to You're one of our favorite people to talk to about.
No, keep
games,
the first one.
Game design, actual play, and it's been such a joy to be your friend the last 3 years, and now going into this era of being your collaborator, we've gotten to work together now on, I was hired on your game, you were hired on my game. We have this beautiful working relationship, and I'm curious, 3 years now since we first met you, what is next for you? What are you excited to make when it comes to games, actual play, etc.? What can we expect in the next 3 years of yes, no, goodbye?
I had this big bingo card idea at the beginning of this year where I was going to make a bingo card for all of the things that I wanted to accomplish this year. And it was so ambitious, and I'm not going to hit any of the things that I bingoed or that I put on the bingo card. And so I feel like I was saying earlier that I've cast a very wide net, which means that I make things slower than I would if I was just focusing on one thing. So there's a part of me that's like, I would love to tell you that I'm going to make a game every year. I know I could make a game every year if I wasn't doing actual play. And a part of me wants to tell you that I'm going to do like a ton of actual play, and I'm going to do a very reasonable amount of it. And that's my priority right now, is making a very cool new show that I feel like we'll be able to talk about soon. To be like logistical about it, I have a game out that's going to get published probably next year. That's going to be a little card game because part of my goals in this bingo card were to do a bunch of little things. And I did one little thing, and I really want to make big stuff. I want to make another 220-page game. So I have a bunch of ideas about that. And yeah, this is such a vague answer because I'm like, I don't know, stuff. But I'm going to do a lot of stuff. I'm going to continue to cast a wide net. I'm going to put out more music, definitely. I'm going to put out an actual play very soon. And there's games coming from me all the time. Geez, that's not an answer, but it is my best. And isn't that all you can ask for?
Well, I'm excited for all of it, and I'm excited to hear about the next 1,000 lessons.
Yeah. At that point, it'll be 2,000 because I'm exponentially growing, right? That's the point?
Hey, maybe don't be greedy, you know?
Oh, I suppose I could take a break.
All right, J Strautman, we're not going to have you bring anything to the table because we're well over time, but where can the people find you and all your stuff if they're looking for you?
I'm at yesnogoodbye.ca everywhere, in your browser, on your social media, on Bandcamp and Spotify and all the streaming stuff. You can literally find me anywhere. And locally, you can find me at Sneaky D's in Toronto, which has been saved. And I'm going to save that story. But if you go there, you're going to find me and we can share a plate of nachos.
And that's on branding.
Yeah. Congrats to Sneaky D's.
Yeah, we love it.
If you want more gaming content from us here at Talk at the Table, you can head on over to the Many-Sided Media Patreon. That's patreon.com/Many-Sided Media, where you can get ad-free episodes of this show, bonus episodes of guest roundtables that are largely extended. This episode's so long, we have to put some of this behind the paywall. Will we? Probably not, because we're nice guys. But there is some cool stuff behind the paywall that you should go check out, including bonus actual plays with cool designers like Felix Isaacs, Caleb Zane Hewitt, Tim Dene, a whole bunch of great people. So head on over there, rate, review, and follow. Talk at the Table wherever you get your podcasts. And that's what the table is talking about. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Talk to the table.
Talk to the table because the table don't talk. You've got to give it a voice.
You gotta give it a voice.
My table sound like this. Every table I've ever talked to sounds like this.
See, my table kind of sounds like this.
Except for my side table. My side table sounds like this. It's a little bit snooty.
Eat off me.
Aw, your guys' tables are so cute.
Okay, goodbye.